Giorgio.
It's good to be here, and we have our special guest today is a dude who spent some time in Congress, and it's somebody who's been pretty outspoken on the lay of the land politically in this country, and it's great to have Adam Kinzinger with us today.
He's also
Hey,
the author of the
yes.
book Renegade, Defending Democracy and Liberty in Our Dividing Country. I liked your Substack bio, Representative Kinzinger, when you said, you may also know me from the January 6th Select Committee. And I appreciated the Kent Brockman reference.
And the understatement, right? Nobody ever knew who I was until that committee, so it's a double-edged sword.
But I also like you said, I'm still devoutly Christian, a recovering fundamentalist, and a reformed attention hog, and an ally to others working to protect our democracy. I think those are pretty good, honest statements.
Well, I'm going to tell you that when I served in the Senate, people on the Senate side of things, and we don't pay much attention to the House, as you well know, and you guys probably don't pay much of the side of the Senate side either, which probably is good too. But everybody knew who Kinzinger was in the Senate. I'll tell you that he was somebody who was really, really smart on defense issues. This is before the January 6th Commission. Very, very smart on defense issues. Very, very in tune with what was going on in this country internationally with international affairs. And him not being in the House right now, by the way, from my perspective, him being a Republican, myself being a Democrat, is a loss for the country. Period. And what are you up to these days, Adam?
Well,
What are
look, and I just want to say I feel the same about you. You played a very important role. I'm sure you don't miss it. I don't miss it, to be honest with you either.
no.
But one of the things I loved was just I was very close with John McCain, as you well knew, and just traveling with him around the world. It was like having a second Secretary of State. I mean, he would show up and be literally almost as famous as whoever the president was at the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
He could speak with authority. He would take Democrats and Republicans with him. We'd have a good time. We'd work friggin' hard. I mean, this guy outworked me, and he was, 3 times my age. But, yeah, I mean, it's and so that part I do miss. I do miss the travel. I do miss kind of that foreign affairs stuff. But what am I doing now is just I've basically made the decision to commit for the next 2 or 3 years to trying to save the country. I'm not gonna do this my entire life. I can't do this till I'm, 90 years old, but the next 3 years is gonna be essential. And I know for me, I'm not gonna be able to, like, look back and say, "Man, I kinda took it easy," if, everything kinda goes to hell. So I'm gonna do everything I can and pray for the best, I guess.
Yeah. So look, I was talking to a friend from Arkansas yesterday, and he said, "Look, if you just take a look at what's happened in the month of January 2026,
Oh,
ignore what's happened in 2025. Just erase that from it. We've had more than a year worth of shit rolling down the hill,
Mhm.
in January. And if you think about it, I mean, holy mackerel! I mean, from what's gone on in Minneapolis to what's going on with elections to, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. How do you prioritize what you're gonna go after?
I mean, that's the toughest question because what Donald Trump is really good at, intentionally or unintentionally, I really don't know. He's really good at kind of just loading constant stuff on top of us. And what happens is, I think Americans and people in general have a short attention span, which now in this environment is probably good because that's kind of how the news is rolling. But, just about the time you get settled in and talking about the Epstein files, then we're kidnapping, the, president of Ven or the illegal president of Venezuela, and then we bombed another boat, and then we're talking about bombing Iran, and then we're in peace talks with Iran, and then we're talking about really standing up with Ukraine, and then all of a sudden he's meeting with Russia again, and then 2 people are shot in Minnesota. And I mean, I guess all you can do, you have to, in my case, kind of react to what's going on at the moment, but also understand that every one of these stories matter. I mean, it feels like information overload, but these stories do matter. And I think the through line in all of this, which is, I think, for those of us that are concerned about democracy that have to keep coming back to, is corruption. I mean, I've never seen I've never imagined, honestly, the amount of corruption that we're seeing right now, from a free jet from Qatar that the taxpayers are then gonna spend $1 billion to turn into Air Force One that then Donald Trump takes with him, to $500 million bought into a company for to buy 49% of it just before he becomes president, to all the Trump hotels that are built, around the globe. And I think you have to try to sometimes go at the as a pilot, the 30,000-foot view and just talk about the through line of corruption, self-focus, self-dealing. But I've gotta tell you, I mean, yeah, every day it's not like it's a small story every day either. Again, it's somebody shot in Minneapolis. It's a potential military action. I mean, it feels like 5 years ago that we were talking about whether we'd attack Panama. Canada's kind of back in the attack sector again. But all of this stuff is just swirls around, and the danger in this is that people just get exhausted and walk away. And that's the big thing we have to guard against, because there are a lot of people engaged in politics right now that love chaos. That doesn't include, I would argue, the three of us here or anybody watching. And so we have to guard against becoming exhausted by it, I think. Did I lose you guys? I can't hear you.
Uh,
Oh, no, I did the fatal Zoom mistake, I forgot to unmute.
oh my god.
You talk about, just being bombarded and overloaded with information, and I even if I just think about the Epstein files and trying to stay on top of what is being discovered in those, it's too much. There's so much to unpack, and then you take Minnesota and ICE and have the nationalization of elections, and I thought it was really interesting you in this piece you published on Substack about the weaponization of the DOJ, and one thing that stood out to me was this idea of what we're seeing with the FBI probe of the 2020 election, and even with the president saying, let's move on from the Epstein files, when so many people told you to move on during the J6 hearings. I mean, what do you make of that? Like, how do you respond to that when people say that stuff to you?
In many times, I just have to kind of laugh because it's again, part of the problem with short information synapses is like we kind of forget what we thought about and believed not that long ago. So when I agreed to do the January 6th committee, and I want to be really clear, I didn't want to do it. Like my hope was to avoid it, and excuse me, my hope was to avoid it, but, I knew I had to do it, and so then I had all these Republicans that came up to me, and they would say, "Look, I actually agree with what's happening here. I couldn't vote for it because my district blah, blah, blah," and Tester knows this well, the whole district thing. It's like, yeah, sometimes, yeah, it's tough, um but they would be like, "But, my focus is just it happened, there was this Senate investigation, it's time to just look forward." And the irony of that, and I didn't agree, but I could kind of buy that argument. But the irony of it is every one of those folks, driven by the president, are the ones that are now obsessively focused on looking back to 2020. 2020, for instance, this is the second time, because they did it last Congress, the second time they're investigating the committee that investigated 2020. The first time they didn't find anything. Trump wanted this now that he's president, so they're doing it again. They're not going to find anything again. But his obsession with 2020 is pretty simple. It's he lost, and when you're a deep narcissist, you don't wanna be labeled a loser, so his obsession is to rewrite the books on that. He may actually believe he won now. I guess nobody really knows what he truly believes. Um, and so they've talked about this weaponization of DOJ. The irony of it, again, is they used to talk about this in terms of the Biden administration weaponizing the DOJ. The funny part about that, my frustration the whole time on the committee was that the Biden administration was doing the opposite of weaponizing the DOJ. They were actually being overly cautious. It took a year. If you guys remember, we did that whole series of hearings in the summer, right? It took that first hearing is when the DOJ goes, holy shit, we actually have some stuff here. And they started the investigation and put Jack Smith in place. Had they started when we started, and as John knows, they have far more tools than Congress has. This thing would have been adjudicated. They did the opposite of weaponizing, but they're taking that thing that they convinced people of, and now they're legitimately weaponizing the DOJ. And Pam Bondi herself doesn't even pretend otherwise. She said at the beginning of the administration, "My job is to be Donald Trump's lawyer." Well, no, it's not. And so what I was saying in the Substack basically is like, look, my approach to this, do I wanna get arrested? No, okay? I don't wanna have to go through that stuff, but I know I did nothing wrong, so my challenge is bring it. Bring it on. If you wanna manufacture stuff, bring it on. I will crush you in court, and it'll make me 3 times more effective against you. And what I know about Donald Trump is when he's confronted, he backs down. Just look at Greenland and look at every case point like that.
I wanna step back just a little bit to something you said, and that was when you got on the committee that folks around you that you served with to say, "Yeah, well, I agree with you, but I can't do this because I've got an election coming up," or whatever it might be. That's the same kind of crap that's going on right now. That's why Congress, Article 1 Congress is AWOL, gone. Um, what's your view on that? You're not in Congress anymore. I don't know why you stepped aside. Maybe it's because of Donald Trump's threats. Maybe it's just because you want to head in a different direction. It's your call. You do that stuff. I mean, I got defeated last time
Mhm.
because people didn't like the job I was doing. But I can go to bed at night and sleep and say, you know what, I did what was right. For my constituents and the country on things like national defense and healthcare and the economy. What advice do you have for those folks that
Mhm.
think that they just need to be a computer, by the way,
Mhm.
because a computer can take tallies and put up the score, or you go out and you get information and, people in Congress have the ability to get far more information than their constituents do, and so there's a reason to vote for the way they vote. What advice do you have for the folks that have no backbone?
Listen, I once had a state representative when I was a young 20-year-old that told me, because I asked him this question, "Do you do what the people want only, or do you do what you want?" And he goes, "Look, if my job was just to put my finger in the air," he said, we could put monkeys in my seat in the state house and put electric trodes on it, and everybody in the district gets to zap the monkey, yes or no, and whichever side gets the more zaps, the monkey will vote. And that's not the role of a republic. The role of a republic, which, my friends in the Republican Party love to stress, the role of a republic is to go in with your moral kind of fortitude and do what you think is right on those moral issues. Now, when it comes to things like advocating for the 16th district in Illinois, I had 4 nuclear power plants, corn, Montana. Like, for advocating on the interests, you do what's important for your district in your state. But when it comes to big moral issues, like the defense of democracy, which, by the way, none of the 700,000 people I represented had to swear an allegiance to the Constitution in the same capacity that I did. Only me. We don't make everybody swear that allegiance. So that means I have a specific responsibility to do the moral thing, even if it's going to cost me my election. And I'll give you another quick story. When I decided to run, I had just gotten back from Iraq, and I wear on my wrist the name of a friend of mine that was killed, Andreas O'Keefe. But I remember when I ran thinking, look, not, again, I'm fresh out of the combat zone. It's like we're asking people to die for this country. And we have to have people that are willing to do it. I mean, imagine a 20-year-old, it's the end of his movie, right? Boom, dead. Um,
Right?
if I am going to ask people to give their life for the country, the least I can do is be willing to give a $174,000 a year job, right? And so what I would say also on top of that is, and you can probably share this too, John, is like the votes I think about when I look back at my 12 years in Congress, the votes I remember and I'm most proud of are actually the votes where I kind of stood alone or I went against what the party wanted, because that was to me a reaffirmation that I had strength and that I was willing to do it. And I'll say I would much rather be sitting in my position out of Congress 12 years later, even dealing with all the stuff going on, than still be sitting there and feel like a complete beta cuck, to be honest with you. Somebody
Yeah.
that's unwilling and unable to stand up and have my own opinions. Otherwise, like literally anybody could do that job. Literally anybody.
So without naming names, do Republicans in Congress still reach out to you? Do they still express this?
Some. So very few like will, and I've never, obviously I've never revealed names, but there's obviously a concern when you're a politician. I don't want to call Adam and say this in case he says so and so
Right,
said this.
right.
But yeah, I still get along with them, but there are a number that I'm trying to talk into like, "Hey, you're retiring for God's sakes." Like, you're retiring. You can now speak out even though you wouldn't do it when you had an election, and even those folks are quiet, and I think it comes to it's a couple reasons. Number 1, it's they wanna have those relationships when they leave Congress, there's money in it, right? I understand it, I don't agree with it, and the second is just leaving the tribe, getting excommunicated from the tribe is really, really hard. In fact, I think it's much more likely that somebody would step in front of a train to save a child's life than they would to be excommunicated from their tribe, and I think that's part of what you see.
It's interesting you say that. And look, there's division within the Democratic Party too, but I do want to focus a little bit on the Republican Party. There are a ton of different disenfranchised Republicans. In fact, I would just say this. The Republican Party that I grew up with, the conservative party, the party that's strong on defense, the party that's concerned about our national debt, the party yeah, that party is gone.
States
Gone.
Family values, all of it's gone. So what about I mean, they can't all went for the Trump Republican Party, have they? I mean, Jesus, I mean, uh, it's crazy.
It's interesting. So we're in a massive, as you all well know, we're in a massive political realignment, right? There's a reason the suburbs of Chicago used to vote 75% Republican and now they vote 65% Democratic. So you have actual shifts of party allegiances. Um, and the other thing is Donald Trump has been in our life for 10 years. Okay. So the first Trump administration, I mean, I was very aggressive against Donald Trump as a sitting Republican in the first Trump administration. I also tried to work with him when I could, but I survived that. I couldn't survive that in this term now. And so over 10 years, I mean, it's like, how do you build a cult? I'm just going to speak very frank. What you do is you excommunicate a few people, you make an example of them. You're also willing to forgive them and bring them back, but only once. So honestly, if Liz Cheney or I got on TV and said, you know what, we're wrong, Donald Trump is the best guy ever, he would invite us to the White House the next day. You couldn't do it again, but you could do it once. And so what you build a kind of vertical tower of allegiance, never stray away from what the leader wants. And in over 10 years, you weed out the people. They either don't run again, they get beat. That had an independence, and the new people that come into office are ones that were always true believers from the beginning. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm still 50-50 on her, but look, let's be honest. She came into Congress because of Donald Trump. People like what's her name from Colorado? I'm trying to think of her name, but, yeah, Boebert. These people are true believers that didn't come in, and so, yeah, over 10 years, you sift the hard folks out, and you're left with malleable people.
I've heard a lot of frustration though about that, like Marjorie Taylor Greene in particular, she became the focus of the president's ire suddenly, and she says she's leaving Congress, and people say, "Well, wait, we need people like you. We need people like you to push back." And why, like, what are they so afraid of? Why is it personal threats? Is it physical threats? I mean, why
I
not?
you know, I think for each person, it's different. To be honest with you, I'm not trying to sound like Billy Badass, but I never feared the physical side of it, right? Like, yeah, I had the death threats, and I always have thought, though, if somebody's gonna threaten you, they're probably not serious. It's the people that don't threaten you, and, you have no idea at that point. I also do trust that God's gonna protect us in a lot of these things, and I've been lucky. So that never feared. I think the thing for me that was like when I had to confront my fears to do what I was doing, it was really the fear of the unknown. Once you make that step. So in Marjorie Taylor Greene's case, she obviously has started to feel the retribution coming back at her, but it's much easier to walk away. We love to walk away from pain. We love to avoid pain. Staying in is really hard. But I will tell you, once you do that, and once the texts come, right? And I mean, no more, but up until about a year ago, I would still get texts from friends how disappointed they are in me, how much my co-pilot in the war, by the way, texted me 4 years ago and said he's disappointed or he's ashamed to have ever flown with me. Those
See,
kinds of things do more damage than a death threat, than an attack, a tweet from Donald Trump. And I think a lot of that is what people try to avoid. But I think for everybody, it's different. I think for a lot of people, it's funny. I've used the line. Because people say, "Well, what you did in Congress was courageous," and I honest to God don't believe that, but I believe I was just surrounded by cowardice, and when you're surrounded by cowards, it looks like courage in comparison, but really I was just doing what I should have.
Well, I think what you exemplified, Adam, was old school. I mean, this
Yeah,
what you did was old school stuff. I mean, I always point out Robert C. Byrd. He fought with the Republican presidents, but he fought with Democratic presidents too. He just didn't trust the administrative branch. He didn't the executive branch. He just thought that Congress has a role and they ought to exert their power. There is very little. I've seen a little bit of it in the last week, but very little. And by the way, I commend him for pushing back on the president on the national election stuff. But there's very little of that that goes on now. They just rubber stamp. The president comes down and says, "Do this, or we're going to have Elon Musk fund a primary against you." And my point is what's more important, your election or this country? This
right.
country has given us a kind of opportunity that's given our generation, and we've screwed it up. Not necessarily your generation, but my generation has screwed it up.
Yeah, I mean oh, go I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I'm sorry. I just I before we because I wanna talk about the
Sure.
nationalization of elections. It's a really important topic right now that a lot of people are worried about. But I do wanna ask, I know you said that you're, not worried, scared, or intimidated about what Donald Trump and the DOJ might do to you, but I am wondering what you think that looks like. What do you think that looks like? Do you have any idea what's coming for you?
No, I don't because, again, you have to get creative because there's nothing I did that would be even close to any kind of a law violation, right? Like, what would they ultimately come after me for would be what I did on the January 6th committee. I'm sure you can find some law that you can, excruciatingly squeeze into that, but I mean, clearly, the second the Supreme Court or any court hears, "Wait, he was a member of Congress investigating, and that's what his sin is?" No, this case is thrown out. So then it's like, well, what do they try to do? We know they use the IRS, right? We know they use all that stuff. I can tell you there was a period of, like, 3 weeks in a row where I would get a call from a reporter trying to dig some story, and one of them, for instance, was, "Hey, we noticed you reimbursed X amount of miles with your last year in Congress." And I'm like, "Yeah, I was in Congress 3 years ago. You're telling me you're now looking back at 3 years ago, but okay." And I said, "Well, by the way, I have an airplane. I used to commute to DC and back with my own airplane. That has a higher mileage reimbursement. And, by the way, I saved all the receipts. Here they are." And then, "Well, do you think Congress should be able to do that?" I'm like, "I don't know, but you can, so go talk to your congressman," right? But the point is, you had those kinds of things that obviously none of them became anything, and it made my wife and I wonder, are they trying to dig and try to create
Yep.
stories? So, anything like that can happen, but, like I said, I have a clean conscience. I know I've not violated the law, so it's whatever it is, it's gonna be made up.
Yeah, but, let's talk about the national election stuff because, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Thune, Senator Thune, the leader of the Republican side, said this is a non-starter. I agree with John Thune 100%. I think he's right, just like he was right on the filibuster.
Mhm.
What's your take on national election stuff? I mean, there's other countries that have national elections, Venezuela, Russia, China come to mind, but what's your view on this stuff?
I'm I'm concerned only to the extent that it shows Donald Trump's mindset, and I think his mindset is clear. He knows he's heading for a bruising in November. I would almost say probably an ass whooping at this point, and by the way, Democrats could totally screw that up. So don't get
Yeah, amen,
you
brother.
really could. You really
Amen.
could. You know too well.
Yep.
Um, but at this point, he's cruising for that, and so what he's trying to do partially is set the tone for excuses when he loses. And look, I'll tell you as a Republican, it is a religious article of faith in the Republican Party that millions and millions of illegals vote every year, okay? It's not true, but that has been ingrained in Republican base through other certain news channels for a very long time. And so he's beginning to set the grounds for that. The time I would get concerned. So basically on the issue of actually nationalizing the election, I just don't think it's going to happen because it's very clear in the Constitution, and there is some resistance in the GOP to it. Um, but where I do get a little concerned is if it's a close election, and this is why it needs to be a blue wave, because if it's close, let's say the Senate is down to 1 seat, and this happens almost every election cycle, and I would say it's a seat in Montana that right now is separated by 300 votes, right? Now all of a sudden you can see where the federal government or Donald Trump or in the House specifically, if it's a House seat where Mike Johnson can simply refuse to seat certain members. What happens in the House if it's, let's say it's the other way, 218 to 214, there's a couple seats still pending and you haven't sat a speaker yet, right? Because you haven't started the session. Do you go forward and do like what's that question? Who makes the decision on whether somebody is seated? I'm sure that's in the rules, but you can see how they can tweak with it. That's where I worry. Or like again, let's say a Georgia race is 50-50 in the polls, and all of a sudden you deploy ICE to, the most black parts of Atlanta to try to suppress the vote or the most Hispanic parts of Atlanta. You can see where they can make a difference there, which is why a blue wave is so important so that they can't do anything to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you're spot on. I mean, I think that, what Democrats, fail in a lot of times is say, "We aren't gonna screw things up as bad as those guys, so vote for us," and sometimes that works, but it works a lot better if you stand for stuff. So if they have policies on the economy, on housing and healthcare and national defense, I think it helps a whole bunch.
I
Yeah, and
also
I can I also just say too, on the Democratic side is like one of the things I'm so focused on is for this election and the next one, all of the differences that everybody has and what they believe, all of that crap pales in comparison. Okay. Since I think like wartime, let me use a war analogy. If we're all in a trench in Ukraine, okay, defending Ukraine, and there's a dude 5 meters away and a dude 50 meters away, I'm going to have everybody in that trench focus on one thing, the guy 5 meters away. That is the initial threat. We can deal with the 50-meter threat later. That is what we're dealing with, the threat to democracy. So our differences on around the edges on these other issues, that doesn't matter right now. And by the way, we can always argue that eventually, and arguing is actually fun when you get back to where it's non-existential like it is now.
Right.
Um, so that's why it's important for, I would say, for Democrats, like have the big tent, welcome people that you don't always love,
right.
because when you start winning elections, then you can have fun debates and you're not
That's
worrying
right.
about whether your kid's gonna have a democracy.
That's right. Amen. Listen,
Oh,
this is great advice. Great advice.
no
Absolutely.
purity tests there, no purity
Mhm.
tests. I do wanna push back, though. You said you're not super worried about the nationalization of elections because it's pretty clear in the Constitution. Well, so is due process,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we're seeing that being stripped, and I think that's the concern is there's like we talked about at the beginning, there's just so much happening and so many fights to be had that are violations of constitutional law that people feel like they don't know which one is the dude 5 meters away. They don't know which
yeah.
one, you know?
No, I think it's accurate, and I guess I would say if I had to revise and extend what I said, it would be less like I don't worry, but more like I don't lose sleep. So there's things I worry about and things I actually lose sleep over. This one, I'm not losing sleep on it right now because I see some resistance to it. Due process, I do lose sleep over because I don't see the resistance to it. I mean, I see people in the streets, which is fantastic and actually has worked, by the way, but I don't see Republicans really speak out, and if I do, they do the old put out a really nice tweet, and then they get all the media attention for their nice tweet, but then they vote in line with everything anyway. I mean, look, by the way, right now, probably the first time in 100 years, an individual Republican member of the House is more powerful than a US senator. Why? Because 1 or 2 Republican members of the House could shut down the agenda for the whole country if they determine to do it. A senator can do that kind of, but there are limitations. In this case, let's say Don Bacon and one other, went to the speaker and said, until you put on the floor protection for due process or whatever the issue is, we're going to vote against every single procedural rule that comes. And we're going to freeze the House and we're going to shut it down and maybe even threaten, by the way, a motion to unseat the speaker. You can get anything you want. They'll eat out of your hand. But
Game
again,
changer.
it's a game changer, but that takes courage, which is lacking.
Yep. I wanna you talk about ICE for a second, then I wanna talk about the meeting with Xi, which is coming up with the president, so
Yeah, I'm wondering, I mean, I know that you were deployed to the southern border in 2019 with Air National Guard, and I know you're following all the stuff happening in Minneapolis. We did hear that 700 DHS agents are pulling out there, but then we both heard personal stories yesterday that ICE is now spotted in Missoula and Helena, Montana. And so, and then you have Steve Bannon saying they're going to, like you just mentioned, use the ICE to surround the polls. So, what's your kind of broad take on what's happening and what needs to be happening, especially as we hear that 23 towns are about to turn warehouses into ICE detention facilities?
Yeah, I mean, look, that is a concern. Steve Bannon a lot of times will say stuff to get attention, but I do think that the use of ICE to potentially suppress the vote under the auspices of protecting it is a concern. I think what you've done is developed and built. I'm not going to go. It's an internal security force, right? This is what you see dictators build. I mean, ICE is now better funded than the US Marine Corps. I mean, that's insane. And now you've had to lower the standards to hire. In 2006, when the army had to expand due to the surge, they had to lower, the basic requirements to get in to recruit enough people to come in. They were taking some felons. They didn't require a high school diploma for a while. That's what happens when you have to expand rapidly. And so this is being used as kind of Donald Trump's little internal fun police force. Why is it that they're in Minneapolis anyway? They're in Minneapolis because of this legitimate thing that was going on with the Somali community and the taxpayer money and the daycares. That's a legitimate thing that, by the way, Minnesota was actually investigating. But
Already.
as a result of that, that's why they sent 3,000 troops in, and then Kristi Noem went there, and it was a flag to another news station to say, "Look, we're coming in, we're stirring it, they're doing this, they're stealing money, so we're gonna make life hell for them." It wasn't about immigration. There was no sudden influx of illegal immigration to Minnesota particularly. It was chosen for a reason, and that's what this is being used for. And I'll say, look, yes, I think where Democrats made a huge mistake in the last term was not taking the border stuff seriously, and, it was frustrating to a lot of Democrats like John, it was frustrating to a lot of Republicans and a lot of Americans. That's an okay thing that that's happening in terms of securing the border, but what's happened is they've used that as an excuse to go after, Americans to create real danger, which is what we're seeing right now. It'll be great if they take their masks off, if they can force that. Part of the issue with mask is not even so much the outward facing, it's when I wear a mask, I can be anonymous and do things that
exactly,
I wouldn't normally do in public.
exactly.
Um, so those are kinds of reforms. Now, if I was actually pushing and could author what would this look like, I would return ICE to its previous levels and previous mission, right? That's what I would do, but
Yeah.
let's be realistic in what can be achieved.
Yeah, well, the amazing thing is, and the president did an interview, I did not see it, I read some sidebars on it with the NBC new NBC host,
Oh, yeah.
and he said, "Yeah, we're going after the worst of the worst," and then you see a five-year-old boy and a seven-year-old girl that are in a detention center in Texas, for God's sakes. Well, not now, the boy isn't, but I think the girl still is.
Girl is still there.
And so, is this really the worst of the worst? I mean,
Right.
really, these are criminals. There was a guy arrested in Floyd, Montana. It was a national story that had a diesel shop that did work on the diesel buses. Now he was here illegally, but the point is that that's the worst of the worst. He's not out committing crimes. He's adding value to the community, for God's sake.
Ex
Now, arrest him and ship him out. That's fine if that's what you want to do. But this guy isn't out committing crimes.
Right,
You know,
right.
they're
And
paying taxes.
and the other thing is this, have you ever seen a raid on a facility that employed illegals that were white? They exist, by the way. I mean,
Oh yeah, they do.
Eastern European,
Yeah.
but no, they haven't targeted them. It's only if you're brown skinned. And the other thing is, and this is what I think drives me the most nuts, is okay, let's take a guy, and if, now that I'm a dad, I can experience this even 3 times more. Let's say that you are a very poor family in Honduras. Your kids barely have enough food to eat, and you make a decision as the man in the house to take your family through a very dangerous trek to come to the United States so that you can work your ass off and make $5 an hour to barely get by, but it's better than what you lived in, right? And you're willing to risk it all. Now, I get it. You can't, that does not give you a right to stay here. But at least we can do this with some heart and compassion.
Yeah.
Because what you see out of this administration is the richest and most powerful among us are absolutely giddy in celebration about the misery of people that were born into misery already. And then they call themselves Christians, by the way, which is especially awful. You know, if you're truly a person of faith and you truly believe in the red letters of the New Testament, then I'm going to tell you, when you deport somebody to back to a bad situation, you do it with a very, very heavy heart, similar to what you do when you have to kill an enemy of the United States. You don't do it by posting a giggly meme and dragging chains and talking about how awesome this is because you're a billionaire white dude and these poor brown people are now getting extra misery. It's just deep racism. I'll just be honest with you. It's just deep racism is what
Yeah.
it is.
And I'll just add before we move on to she's, as a woman, I am deeply concerned about bad actors going out and imitating
Yeah.
DHS agents and suddenly just kidnapping people off the street. I'm deeply concerned about that because they are masked and they're not showing warrants, so they're not showing identification. So how do we know?
Yeah. And then somebody, I think it was some congressman recently made the point, just said, "How okay, a situation like that happens, how do we stop people from shooting at an agent that does that?" And then JD Vance posted, "Oh, these people are calling for shooting agents." Like, shut up. You know what? I was raised and steeped in the Second Amendment crowd. You guys talked about this stuff all the frickin' time. And now, finally, the scenario that you dreamed about forever, masked agents coming for you, are actually doing it. But since it's your side, you don't care.
No, that's a fact, by the way. That's 100% fact. I mean, Second Amendment is important, but it's important for everybody, not just certain
Right.
people, not just certain colors or political persuasions. The Second Amendment is the Second Amendment, and it applies to everybody
Right.
equally. It's
Absolutely.
incredible. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yep,
So
100%.
the president is going to meet with Xi Jinping, president of China, um, coming up pretty damn quick. Um, yeah, I think the news reports they had a call with him yesterday. But what do you see out of that, and what are the pluses and what are the dangers?
I wish I could come up with a plus because I would love to sit here and be like, I'm fairly calling it on both sides. I can't on this one because, I mean, a plus would be if Donald Trump actually was willing to kinda stand strong. The problem is, I don't know if you I don't think you were in this meeting, but you might have been. I was in the meeting kind of early on in Trump 1 where he came in and begged us to pull the China ZTE sanctions out of the NDA, the Non-Defense Authorization Act, because President Xi had called him and asked him as a friend and said it was costing jobs in China. Now, China ZTE was being used as a spy telecom similar to Huawei, and we did the right thing by banning that stuff in the United States. And that's the problem with Donald Trump. Put aside any other feelings about him, the problem is he's deeply narcissistic and wants to make you like him. When you meet with him, he wants you to like him. And that includes leaders like Putin and Xi Jinping. And so if you think about, we went through a lot of excruciating pain to try to protect these advanced chips that we have, you know, that are really important for computing. He's already given a select number of those to China, and he also did it to UAE. I think he's going to go sell the farm, particularly when you start hearing from members of the administration that now talk about spheres of influence in the world. The US has its Western hemisphere, Russia, whatever Russia is, it's not going to have Europe, but in their mind, it has Europe. And then China has Asia. Well, by the way, I think South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and those countries don't like us necessarily selling them out to hegemony of China. Um, but the fact that there are members of the administration that think in that 1800s way kind of worries me about what he's going to do with the president of China and, frankly, kind of backing away from our security commitments. What happens if Xi Jinping simply asks him, "Are you going to defend Taiwan if I attack?" Do you think
Yep.
Donald Trump is going to tell him, "Yes, I will"? I don't think so. He's probably going to be like, "Nah, your decision. We don't care," because he's kind of said that already. So I think it's
Yeah, I mean,
dangerous.
I
I hope
what
I'm wrong.
I've read an article where he's told him that, "Yeah, go ahead and attack him after I'm out of office,"
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
He literally said the same thing. He literally this morning said, I think he's gonna sell the farm."
Yep.
yeah, yep,
That's
I
what
think
he
so too.
said.
I think and for by the way, for our farmers, which I know is important for you and I, John, as representing big ag areas, the damage that Donald Trump has done to the farm community has been incalculable, and I've got family that are farmers. They still love Donald Trump. It's a cultural thing. I understand, I'm not gonna criticize him for that, but look, when all of a sudden we're engaging in unnecessary trade wars, I'm all for trade wars when it comes to things like protecting steel, things that are important to our national defense, etcetera, but when it's like we're shutting down export markets that our farmers and farm community has spent decades to grow and build. And with the snap of a finger, we shut that down, and China buys soybeans not from the US now, but from somebody that we bailed out for $20 billion. I mean, you can't look at that and say that is just good stewardship of our farm economy, unfortunately.
No, it's not good. I would tell you that, I agree with you 100%. I think that the folks that are in production agriculture, the farmers, the ranchers that are out there still are, for the most part, in Donald Trump's camp. I will tell you that it's been about a month ago, I talked to a guy, early 50s farmer, said, "I don't like Joe Biden. I don't like anything about Joe Biden, but I may not be farming next year because of Donald Trump.
Right? Yeah,
I'm gonna lose the farm because of this." Uh, I think if they can understand what the challenges are in markets, because I think there's a lot of them that think it's Washington D.C. that's done this. No, they haven't. Congress has taken their powers that they have for tariffs that the Constitution gives it and give it to the executive branch. That's a different issue. But the executive branch has taken that and they've weaponized these tariffs to the farmers. Uh, you know, when it comes to inputs, when it comes to markets, all that stuff's blown through the roof. And I don't know. I'm sure it's the same thing in Illinois, but we get a lot of our inputs out of Canada, and the tariffs are
totally. Oh,
just
yeah.
killing these folks, just killing them. Not to
Yeah.
mention equipment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then, of course, keep in mind that raises the end price, which then affects whether countries overseas are gonna buy it because maybe they can get it from cheaper from South America that doesn't
absolutely,
use the same inputs, and,
absolutely.
yeah, I agree with you, but it's a big question to Democrats, though, is are you going to be a party that is open and welcoming to since, I use the liberal terms open and welcoming to ag, rural America.
Mhm.
I would say right now they don't feel comfortable in the Democratic Party, at least not in certain areas. If you can be open to that, it doesn't mean you have to become conservatives. I'm not telling you to sell out what you believe. We talked about that at the beginning, but at least saying folks like you guys are welcome here, then I think the Democrats are undefeatable. I mean, they used to be rural area America used to be Democratic not that long ago.
Yep. No, when I was growing up, Montana was a blue state, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. It ain't a
Yep.
blue state no more. I mean, it's because, to be honest with you, I mean, Democrats don't speak to them. I will also tell you that I don't think Republicans speak to rural America. They just got them by default,
That's
and
right.
so there's some opportunity here.
So,
I agree.
Representative Kinzinger, I know we have just a couple minutes left, but you mentioned that you still identify as a Republican. Do you see more people coming back that way? Do you see the party shifting again back to the party you joined?
Look, I'm a legitimate rhino now, a Republican in name only. I've I've kept the term because frankly it pisses off Trump and also I think I'm more effective as a Republican in what I'm saying. I have not voted Republican in the last two election cycles. I voted Democratic. Um but I am holding out hope that someday, I have a 4-year-old son. I hope that someday he can, be open to voting Republican because it's not a authoritarian party. It's a conservative side of the coin. I don't know if that time's coming anytime soon. I see 2 possibilities. One is Trump's out of office, Republicans get crushed this November, and there's like a come to Jesus moment. Is that possible? Sure, but you need a very dynamic person that can lead the party to that direction. That's not me, by the way, because you make enough enemies already. You're not effective at that. But um, the other thing is they continue to go through. Like, the young people in the Republican Party today have been steeped in this politics. They don't know Ronald Reagan. They don't know George W. Bush. They don't even know John McCain. All they know is Donald Trump. And so I worry that that's really hard to break. And so do I think it's gonna be as haphazard and berserk as it is now? Probably not in a few years. I just don't know if I'm gonna get my old Republican Party back, at least in the prime of my life. I don't know.
So you said that's not me. Does that mean you're not going to run for president?
I'm not saying yes or no on that, but it wouldn't be as a Republican. I mean, the reality of it is the GOP, I mean, they've when you call them out, so people may be willing to come around to a point of view, but they're not willing to come around to a point of a view of a point of view and admit that they were part of the reason it was bad in the first place. So,
That's right.
uh, I
That's right.
wouldn't say no to it, but it wouldn't be as a Republican.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's interesting. Are we we're gonna close this out, I gotta bring up a really sore subject with you,
Okay,
Adam.
okay, great.
A really I know this is gonna cut you right
Oh
to the
boy.
core, but
Oh god, I
the
know where you're going
Montana
with this.
the Montana State, Illinois State job, I just, I just had I just gotta bring it up
It
that
was a
for those
great game.
for the national
Oof.
championship that, and I'm gonna tell you, as a Montanan, I'm glad Montana State won, no doubt about that, but Illinois State had a quality team. They were really
Yeah.
good. I think their quarterback was red hot good, by the way. And I just want to tell you that my great sympathies to you on that
Thanks.
loss.
I've gotta tell you, so I'm actually the only member of Congress to have ever gone to Illinois State University. It's a big university. It's a big teacher school, and, I so this is my double heartbreak. So that game, amazing game, obviously a massive ISU comeback until the end.
Yep.
Um, and I'm also a Bears fan. And the same thing happened. We lost in overtime. And I'm like looking up at God, like, seriously, is this personal? There's not many people that went to both ISU and are Bears fans. Like, why are you picking me? But no, again, congratulations to Montana. So Tom Rooney was a member of Congress with me, and his son is now a sportscaster for one of the stations in Montana. I don't know which one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he sent me a video of him at a bar in Montana when Montana won, and I was excited. I wish I was there, but I also was heartbreaking. And but good job, Montana. You guys deserve.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm going to tell you, and this is the truth. Either team could have won that game, and I think
Yep.
anybody that was there would tell you that that
Yep.
was a
Oh,
hell
it's
of a
an
game.
incredible
Hell of a
game.
game.
Let's have a rematch next year. How about that?
Yeah. All right. Well, bring it on. Bring it
All
on. There
right.
we go.
Perfect.
Former Representative Adam Kinzinger, thank you so much for joining us and for your time and all you're doing.
You bet.
Appreciate you, man. Really
Thank you
do
guys.
appreciate
It
it.
was
Your
good
voice
being
is an
on.
important voice. It's an
Thank you.
important voice. Keep
Thank you.
chirping.
Y'all too. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but
Come back.
See ya.
All right. Whew. That was a great conversation.
yeah, I think it could have went on for hours,
Of
quite
course.
frankly.
There's so many of our conversations.
He's a stand-up guy. We need, I wished he was still in Congress. It would have been good, but I also get it. But no, we had, I mean, look, I've got 10 things written on this sheet of paper we could have talked to him about.
No, I have
And,
so many things too that I didn't put up.
yeah,
I do want to talk about Epstein for a second, and then I want to play a video.
yeah,
Do you have
shoot,
time? You somewhere to
rocket.
be?
No, I don't have anywhere to be. No.
So, this came up this morning. This is former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Um, Basically, this is all about this Epstein fight, right? And we continue to see more horrific details emerge from all of these files, and
Yeah,
we're looking through them as they come out. But Hillary Clinton posted this calling for a public hearing with cameras on instead of a private deposition with her and former President Bill Clinton. So this is all about the House Oversight Committee's probe into Epstein. And then we saw, Assistant AG Todd Blanche say, well, hey, it's not a crime to have partied with Epstein. So what do you think? Is this going to backfire on the Republicans?
well, I mean, take a look, and I don't think all the documents are out yet. In fact, I know they're not
No,
all
they're not.
out yet. And the fact of the matter is I think it's pivoting. It's pushing in a different direction to take it away from Donald Trump. There is no doubt about the fact that, and I don't care who you are. If you were dealing with Epstein, you were on the wrong side of right there, and that's being very generous. But I think it's about pushing it away from Trump, focusing on other people, and in the end, and the real problem here is, Maritza, is that the victims are not. I'll be surprised if there's any consequences for the folks that besides Maxwell, who's in prison, any for the folks who did all this crap.
Well, and I mean, I've been just gutted by some of the things I've read this week. There's one diary entry in particular that just it's horrific to read about. And the president's asked about it, and he says something. He berated Caitlin Collins over it, and said it's time to move on. It's time to move on. And they're not. No one in the
Is it?
administration is saying our hearts go out to these victims.
No.
They don't talk about the
No.
victims or the survivors, we should call them.
Yeah, they've been to the White House now, and it goes back to what Kinzinger said. By the way, I mean, you got people that are well moneyed, that above the law, and this is kind of proof of it. To be honest with you.
I'm bummed I didn't get to ask Adam this, but I did want to ask him because there are all those videos that come out that people replay about whether it's Rubio or JD Vance or Ted Cruz railing against Donald Trump in 2016.
Oh yeah.
And Rubio even said, for years to come, there are many people on the right that are going to be having to explain and justify how they fell into this trap of supporting Donald Trump.
Rubio said that?
Rubio said that.
He did, huh?
What's the difference between Rubio and Adam Kinzinger?
Well, I think Adam Kinzinger's got values and he's grounded. Not to plug the podcast, but he's grounded. He believes in what he believes, and he's believed that his entire life. He's a young man, so is Rubio. But obviously, Rubio sees opportunity, and Kinzinger wants to stick with what he believes is right and has values. I think that's the difference. I have watched Marco Rubio's body language, which I wrote a term paper on when I was a senior in college, high school, by the way. But I've watched his body language.
What, on body language or
Yeah,
on Marco Rubio?
on body language.
Okay.
On body language. Yeah, it was a big deal in the early '70s. But I've watched him while the president's talking. He is not comfortable with some of the things the president's saying, but he doesn't have the guts to stand up because it'd probably cost him his job as Secretary of State and the other half a dozen jobs he has. But he knows it's bullshit. There's not a lot of leadership there, in my opinion.
It's just crazy to me that you can say stuff like that and it's on tape.
Yeah.
And it
Well, he will
doesn't
say
matter.
people change. People change.
People change.
Yeah.
We have someone in our chat saying that she's never gotten justice and it's been 42 years. And I just want to say that we see you and I'm so sorry. And I hope justice is coming.
I mean, look, it's what I talked about the old Republican Party. It used to be about family values and holding people accountable and all that stuff. All that stuff's gone. I mean, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore in the party. And I think that's to the party's, it's very much a negative. I think those are good things. When I was in the state legislature, arguing about how we're spending money and whether we should spend money, conservative versus liberal, whatever you want to call it, that's what the two-party system's about. And right now, we've got a president of the United States. Are they talking about debt? Hell no. They're talking about giving Argentina $20 billion and farmers $12 billion, and the list goes on and on. Just buy people off. And Republicans aren't saying a word about the spending money and national debt. What the hell is going on? It's crazy.
Okay, we talked a little bit about 2026 with Kinzinger. And I showed you this video yesterday, and you said, we got to play that video.
All right.
This is from my little group chat from my former show team. So I want to play this for you. We'll talk on the other side of this.
Abu Ghazaleh is the kind of radical Democrat Fox News warned you about. Kat believes you deserve universal health care, groceries, and housing. Pfft, where does she think we are? The richest country on earth? Kat isn't a millionaire. She doesn't take PAC money. She can't even afford health insurance herself. How can she possibly relate to normal, hardworking corporations like you and me? And it gets worse. As a journalist, Kat's reporting helped lead to Tucker Carlson's departure from Fox News. Is that who you want fighting extremists in Washington? Kat claims the Democratic Party should not bow down to Trump or his billionaire friends. Does she think strongly worded letters count as bowing? Kat Abu Ghazaleh represents a new generation of progressive Democrats, working to redefine the party's future. And she plans to do it with her ferocious attack cat by her side. Is this who you want representing us?
I'm Kat Abu Ghazaleh, and I approve this message.
I just got to tell you, I don't know who the media firm who did that ad, but big kudos. That is goddamn brilliant. I'm just telling you, it is brilliant. It is entertaining. It is funny.
Funny.
You want to watch it over and over again. It is the epitome of what a political ad should be. And I'm just going to tell you, whoever the media firm that did that, go out there and do your work because you got a great future in politics. I'm just telling you, if you can be that creative, you're pretty damn good.
I know. We've watched it a few times. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Hilarious.
And it's like I said, political ads are boring. It's the same old, cookie cutter crap all the time. That blows all that stuff out of the water. Good job.
You wish you had an ad like that?
Oh man. I mean, that's a game changer. I mean, especially if they can follow it up with another one that's that good and another one that's that
That's
good.
the pressure.
I mean, but it's the truth.
pressure.
If you got creative people though that are creative in making ads, man, oh man, it can make. We need to get the money out of politics, but you can do that if you've got those kind of media firms that can really make a difference. I just think it's an incredibly powerful ad.
Jeffrey is asking us to talk about the Montana plan. Jeffrey, we've had a bunch of episodes about campaign finance and the Montana plan specifically. Go check them out on our Substack.
But I will say just really quickly, and we could
Go
get
ahead.
into this for another episode, but because we've already done several, but it's about making it so corporations aren't people. And if you think corporations are people, then you shouldn't vote for the Montana plan if you're from Montana. If you think corporations aren't people, then this is right up your alley.
Also, your friend Steve would like to know where you got your shirt.
I got it at a St. Vincent de Paul. Steve, you know where I buy my clothes.
He's being trolled here. He's being trolled by his friends. All right. I think that's what we have. Your hat. Let's talk about your hat.
Yeah. Yeah. Big Hole. It's great fishing. Great spot.
Montana. We
It
should
was
say
given
Big
to
Hole,
me.
Montana.
It was given to me by a friend by the name of Mike Wheat, who has a friend that works at this place. So it's good. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a very big deal coming up. We've been doing this for 1 year.
It seems like a lifetime to me.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah.
Today's our 80th episode, and we are recording a conversation with Rachel Maddow for our 1 year anniversary show. And we're very excited about this. There's a lot we could have talked about with Adam today, but I did want to save some of it for her because gosh, we got to talk about Don Lemon being arrested. We have to talk about the layoffs at Washington Post.
Yeah.
If you have questions that you want us to talk to Rachel about or topics you want us to talk to Rachel about, she's so smart.
Yeah, no, she's white hot smart. You got to probably talk a little fascism,
I think maybe a little fascism. Yeah. I've been reading her book, her latest book called Prequel. And I know I left it over there on the counter. Charlotte helped me out though. And so yeah, it's so incredible, the parallels of what we're seeing.
Unfortunately.
And so I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to her about that. So yeah, we would love to know what you would like us to talk to her about. Wendy says we should get out on the street and start interviewing people about where they're at. Yeah, I agree, Wendy. We should do that. And then somebody else asked if you or I will run for governor. I'm a no.
I think you should run for governor. That's a great idea. That's a great, great idea. I'm glad you brought that up.
No.
Giorgio for governor. It kind of rhymes. Governor Giorgio.
No. We already have a GG.
Well, okay, we got another one.
We already have a GG. You're the one that people want.
No.
All right.
No.
Charla is crying right now. She's in a corner shaking.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't want. She doesn't want that. Marlene says we need to invite Rachel to fish in Montana. Yes.
Yeah, I think maybe the Big Hole. Maybe I'll wear this hat tomorrow.
I think we better take her to the Big Hole. Okay. Yeah. So we want to thank everyone for joining us. Send us your topics and questions for Rachel Maddow. For our 1 year anniversary show, we want to thank former Representative Adam Kinzinger for being with us today. We want to thank Pearl Jam for letting us use their music, and all of you for getting up with us. I guess it's not that early.
Not that early on the mainland. It's not that early.
It's not that early, but we want to thank you. Anything else?
That's it. Tally ho.